All right, welcome back. If you were here yesterday for the beginning of Through the Bible in a Year, great. If you missed it, well, welcome in, and you can always go back and watch that and get caught up. So let's get into it already. So we're going through the Bible in a year. Here is our method of what we're doing. We're reading a different style of writing in the Bible each day. We're not just starting in Genesis and reading through. In fact, we haven't read any Genesis yet. We read Psalms to start with. Today we're jumping into the Gospel. Tomorrow we'll get to Genesis. So we've got Matthew 1 and 2, and it's kind of long, so we're going to just jump in without delay and start reading. So, Matthew 1. So I'm going to read through all of Matthew 1, and then I'll stop and maybe make some comments about things, and then we'll get into Matthew 2. So, Matthew 1. This is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac, the father of Jacob. Jacob, the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. Perez, the father of Hezron. Hezron, the father of Ram. Ram, the father of Aminadab. Aminadab, the father of Nahshon. Nahshon, the father of Salmon. Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Solomon, the father of Rehoboam. Rehoboam, the father of Abijah. Abijah, the father of Asa. Asa, the father of Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat, the father of Jehoram. Jehoram, the father of Uzziah. Uzziah, the father of Jotham. Jotham, the father of Ahaz. Ahaz, the father of Hezekiah. Hezekiah, the father of Manasseh. Manasseh, the father of Amon. Amon, the father of Josiah. And Josiah, the father of Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the exile to Babylon. After the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel. Shealtiel, the father of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel, the father of Abihud. Abihud, the father of Eliakim. Eliakim, the father of Azor. Azor, the father of Zadok. Zadok, the father of Akim. Akim, the father of Elihud. Elihud, the father of Eleazar. Eleazar, the father of Mathan. Mathan, the father of Jacob. And Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary. And Mary, the mother of Jesus, who was called the Messiah. Thus there are 14 generations in all from Abram to David, 14 from David to the exile in Babylon, and 14 from exile to the Messiah. This is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, Joseph said to David, "Do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home to be his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she had given birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. All right, we're going to back up. There's the explanation here in verse 17 of there were 14 generations from Abraham to David, and 14 from David to exile, and 14 from exile to the Messiah. You can go through and look and say, well, here there might have been this, or here there might have been that, and there actually was a different number. Matthew is making a symbolic point here, and so whether you make that argument and say, well, this, if we look at a different place, list someone else in there, I'm not going to get into it. Matthew does this for a reason, and I want to trust his reason for doing that. I did want to come and notice here in 5, whose mother was Rahab and whose mother was Ruth. Rahab, if you remember, was a foreigner, and she's the one that saved the spies. Ruth was a foreigner, and she's the one who returns with Naomi when Naomi had left because of famine in the land. And so that's a fascinating thing. Also, if you go up, verse 3, whose mother was Tamar. Tamar, also a foreign woman. So here you have in this first section 3 foreign women who are in the genealogy of Jesus. And then you have Mary listed here at the end. So you have a number of women mentioned, which is an interesting, fascinating point. Matthew doesn't have to list any of these. People would have known them, but he's doing it anyway, pointing that out. Now, one of the things I've made a point of from time to time is just how fun it is to go and read the names. So rather than go through some of the others, I'm going to go here for a second. This is blueletterbible.com. I use it because it's quick, it's easy. One problem that you might struggle when you go there as well, this is all King James Version in order to do that. That's okay. It gives to the Greek, and we're looking at the Greek. So let's just look at here in Matthew 1, and you've got the book of the generations of Jesus, the Christ, the son of David. Let's look up the name David. What does David mean? I'll open that in a new tab. I'll click over there a second. Translated, second king of Israel, the origin, Hebrew origin, David. Oh, come on. Sure, I'm going to do David to start with, and it's not going to give me the meaning of David. Proper noun. Oh, come on. All right. Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to find that. I will go to the next one because I know Abraham is in there. So Abraham, here it is. Outline of Bible usage. Abraham means father of multitude. So just go through here, find different names, and look at what they mean. So I'm trying to think. Let's look at Jehoshaphat. Whom Jehovah judges. See, you have names of God in here. When you start looking at people's names, well, I don't know those names off the top. I'm trying to look at ones that you might be familiar with. Then you would be more interested in knowing the meaning of them. Let's go Eliezer. Eliezer, help of God. Ooh, that's a nice name. Now let's look up Jacob. Jacob's there. Heel catcher or supplanter. So literally would be heel catcher. And if you remember, Jacob wrestled with God. You find interesting things. So if you've got more time, here's a source you can go, blueletterbible.org. You type in the passage, and it will give you all of the different possible, well, it'll give you the meaning of the names and you'll notice that there's God in a lot of the names in the Old Testament. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but that's one of the things that's fascinating is God is my strength, might be the Father of my God is the Lord, and you'll find things like that going through here. So you've got a whole bunch of names all the way through that you can look at. You're probably familiar with the story here of the angel speaking to Joseph, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Plus, we just came out of the Christmas season, so that also would be a reason not to jump into it. So let's move ahead and go into Matthew 2, which also we probably just read. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We have saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem, in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." If you notice the 14 names in the middle, those were all rulers of Israel. Just point that out. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them, and it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. Coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there till I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where they stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled when the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized he'd been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious. He gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and in the vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted, because they are no more." After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophet, that he would be called Nazarene. All right, so after the genealogy, we have and the promise of the birth, we have the birth. Then we have the story we're familiar with the wise men, who is the now king on the throne that's not legitimate from the standpoint that he's placed there by Rome. So he is not a legitimate king of Israel from the standpoint that he is a collaborator with the Roman authority. He's placed there by the Roman authorities, and so the true king is being born. Magi come, and we can debate what that is and what that means. It's not a clear word. Some translate it wise men. Somehow we've, over the years, gotten that into the idea of king. It probably really more likely would be Priests would be a better translation than king. They would have been the people, as we see in the Babylonian captivity in the Old Testament, the wise individuals who counseled the king. That would have been who they were, which sometimes could have been priests. So in that direction is more uh, historically accurate, most likely, than they were kings of somewhere. If you're wondering on the three, we get that. It doesn't say in the text. We get that from there being three gifts. So they get warned in a dream. Joseph gets warned in a dream. God is moving and at work. He has work in the sky above, orchestrating that. We could spend some time digging into that. That's a whole long kind of thing, figuring out when that could have happened. We can wind back the stars. We can look through things and date things based on when it possibly could have happened. We can probably get pretty close to it happening, but there's a couple of different things, whether you're trying to date it from here in the text in Matthew or in Luke, or if you're trying to date it based in the description in Revelation of the description of the heavens in there is also potentially a description of when Jesus' birth took place in the heavenly realms, what was displayed. So there's lots of possibilities there. And we've got some interesting things here too, that Jesus flees the land where he's supposed to come to, and he goes to a foreign land. He is, in essence, replaying the story of the people of Israel. They are in the land, and there's a famine, and they have to, what? Flee to Egypt, and they are preserved through Joseph in Egypt. And now Jesus is the same. He is going to Egypt, and out of Egypt, I will call my son was a reference to Israel being called out, the people of Israel being called out of Egypt. And now his son Jesus is being called out. So there's things there. Now, the fact that he's from Nazareth and being called a Nazarene, Nazarenes were set apart and set aside because they were dedicated to God. And so we have that language and imagery here as well. So I'm not going to dive into that a lot farther. This is pretty familiar to most of us. There's more things that could be said in there, but since we're not just doing a study on that, we're trying to work our way through the Bible. I think that gives us a great rendition. And again, if you want to go and look up word meanings, blueletterbible.org is where you can go, and it has the Greek and the Hebrew lexicons in there that you can look up different words and be able to find their meaning there. So maybe this is saying that David, let me check that. I'm just looking here. David. Oh, there it is. Didn't know I had it early. Beloved. There's where we started with David. I couldn't find it now. It is beloved. That's what David means. So I hope this was a blessing to you today, or if you're whenever you're watching it. And I hope you join us again tomorrow.